Hello guys and welcome back to this new episode. So today we are going to discuss about Von Gloeden. Von Gloeden and the boys from Taormina. Now this is going to be an interesting story, a terrible one, but also an interesting one. And so since we're here to entertain ourselves, but also to entertain you guys, right? We with our 56 personalities. No, I'm just kidding. Let's move on. Let's go to straight to the point and let's go to Von Gloeden. Who was Von Gloeden? He was a German photographer, a nobleman belonging to one of the most prestigious houses of the time. He was also an artist, had studied painting, but then he found his real talent in photography. Also, during an economic crisis that in 1895, he was able to support himself and his entire family thanks to his work as photographer. So, technically speaking, he was quite known. Upon him, complete silence will descend because of the fascist censorship, right? But yet he was quite known for having introduced some technicalities and some technical advancement in the form of filters for the light, but also in the form of like potions, things like made of milk, oil, and glycerin that would make the skin appear more beautiful. And so this body lotion would cover imperfections. Now, von Gloeden suffered from tuberculosis, and so he moved to Taormina because it was suggested to him by one of his friends. So again, he moved to Taormina and there he established his residency. He's gonna be absent from this place only during the First World War, and then he's gonna go back and spend the rest of his life there. Now, Taormina at the time was a very interesting place. Had drawn the attention from a very illustrious, um, um, people and writers, and later on, Oscar Wilde will be one of those mentioning Taormina as one of the most beautiful places on earth. But even before Von Gloeden, Taormina had seen a whole lot of tourists flocking in, and the reason could be explained in the sort of exotic fascination that foreigners, especially Germans, but not only Germans, would see in Taormina. At the time, Greece was under the Turkish occupation of the Ottoman Empire, and so naturally, all of those people could not go to Greece, and the thing that was closest to Greece was, of course, what was known as Magna Graecia. In other words, the old Greek colonies, among which there's, of course, Sicily. And so specifically, Taormina was able to do that, was able to draw attention and to convey all the tourists from Northern Europe there. Now, at the time, Taormina was everything but the place that we know it to be nowadays, in the sense that, of course, naturally was much more poorer. Taormina was actually developed into the place that we understand it to be only in that period of time, thanks to the amount of tourists that would come in and naturally would push towards its development. Now, among the reasons why Taormina was able and managed to do that, we have to mention a couple of things. First, we have to start off with the almost to take for granted the idea that a tourist is not just a tourist that does sightseeing, that visits places, and that is interested in understanding the culture of a place and get more familiar with a different culture, but is often, and Thailand nowadays is a great example of that, is often a sexual type of tourist. And there were certain traditions in Taormina. That, for instance, of shirtless men going out to fish, or that of like young male individuals fighting naked or semi naked. And so, this type of traditions or manifestations were seen with particular interest by again Germans and tourists in general. And so we get to this point. We get to the point where, of course, Taormina is able to become the center of attention. And this is particularly interesting for von Gloeden, who was a photographer, and I said a photographer, but I didn't say of what, and that is of male nudes. And so in Taormina, von Gloeden can do whatever he wants, basically, right? So his subjects are male individuals, young boys, teenager, or anyway, before teenagers, so like 11, maybe 10, 11, 12, mostly 12, 13 years old. And so basically what happens here is that von Gloeden starts to take pictures of those boys. The pictures, the images that are more appreciated outside of Italy are probably the pictures where these guys are poorly dressed with ancient Greek or ancient Romans traditional type of clothing. Now, that is something that, of course, is very much liked by Europeans because there is a recall to neoclassicism, right? And so, of course, there's that. On top of that, there are other pictures where these young boys are completely naked. So that's one point to make. And in general, sometimes these young boys are dressed up like young females. Now, when we said that von Gloeden was kind of allowed to do whatever he wanted, that is mostly because he developed very quickly a certain type of reputation of entertaining himself with young boys, right? And so there were rumors connected to orgies, rumors connected to relationships, sexual relationships between him and these young boys, this group of young boys, right? And so in front of those rumors, the population reacted in a very interesting way. On the one hand, there were all of these rumors that were spread around. Involving him and somewhat damaging his reputation. On the other side, the population there was very much tolerant. One, because von Gloeden was certainly richer than the average inhabitant of Taormina, and so that was a good point because it establishes that there is a gap in the relationship and there is some sort of superiority and therefore power that can get exerted by von Gloeden on the population itself. On the other hand, though, the population manifested itself as a very accepting society. Now, this acceptance and somehow the ability that the population had to have their own ideals being reshaped was also important and was also so much tolerated. Mostly, I would say, because that would prevent these young boys from harassing young women, right? So there's an interesting thing that goes on here. That is, you can have sexual relationships with another boy and preserve the virtues of a young female, if that is, if that can be even said. But at the time, it was like that. And so, even with the strong suspect of whatever was going on there in that house at night, the population was very accepting. Now, important point to make here is that the voices of the church, in particular that of Don Marziani, didn't have so much impact, possibly for the economic power held by von Gloeden and possibly in general because of the reputation that Taormina in those years was building for itself as a very touristic spot. Now, according to one of my professors, by the way, Professor Bolognari, what happened in that period of time is that right after basically um, this phase where rumors were spread and where the boys were young, right after that, so once the boys grew up, they tended to dissociate themselves in a very intelligent and strategic way, if we may. That is to say, in fact, that those boys went on to gain a reputation as Latin lovers. In Italian, there is a word for it that is femminaro, and this is like Italian slang, but it's also say that basically to socially redeem themselves, being that Taormina was becoming a very touristic spot and therefore there were a lot of hotels, they would entertain non-serious relationships with every woman possible, possibly with every woman that was there on holiday, so for vacation. And this is particularly interesting because it was a way for them to re-establish themselves on the market socially with women, for them to have a completely different image from the one they used to have, and to kind of bury those rumors that were so common when they were teenagers, right? And so they went on, some of them emigrated, but then this reputation spread on to the entire island, and I guess in part it affects the way Italian southern men are perceived. Now, guys, with that being said, I want to leave you to this. What do you think? Is this like a possible explanation? What do you make out of this story? Did you suspect or did you know anything about it? I definitely want to know what you have to say about it, so don't forget to leave your comments below. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts. Also, if you wanted to support this channel, you could always do that by subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and of course hit the notification bell so that you can receive updates of every new video that gets uploaded here. Now, guys, with that being said, I very much thank you for your attention and for bearing with me. I do hope that you have enjoyed this video, and we're definitely gonna talk more next time with a different episode. Don't forget to like the video and let me know what you all make out of this story, and most of all, if you are aware of any other possible cause for this sort of reputation. With that being said, bye bye.